Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Female Striving Over 30 podcast. We made a mistake last episode.
A big mistake.
We were like, yoo-hoo, season 4! And yesterday when we were preparing everything to upload the episode, we realized actually, do we have 2 season 4 episodes here? Like, what is happening? So this is actually season 5.
That's when you know you've done a lot of episodes. To
Yeah,
be
I know.
fair. Yeah, season 5. So, season 5, woo!
I don't even know how I got it so wrong. I was so sure that we were in season 4.
Yeah, we both were.
No, season 5, so that's even better, guys.
Yeah.
Season
You
5.
believe that? Yeah.
So we are recording a little bit earlier than we
Mhm.
usually do, just because our guests couldn't record on our usual days. So has it been long since we last spoke? But how are you, Jasmine? Well, tired. You said you were tired.
It's been a long few days. No, it is. I am tired. So we're recording this on a Friday night. So it's the end of a long week. This has actually been my first full week at work.
Oh.
Because we had the new academic year started, but we only have lectures at first, and then this year all the seminars started as well. And there's a lot more seminars than there are lectures, so it's been a full-on week, and I've had other things going on, like marking to do, loads of stuff. So it's just been an intensive week.
Marking already? You just started. What are you doing to your students?
This is from last time. This is from last year's students. It's just their friends. It's a constant loop. It's dissertations, so they've been writing them over summer and everything, and then submitted them, and now we're doing But as you can imagine, they're very big documents to read and mark.
Yeah.
It's very intensive for marking. So it's been a tiring week, but you know what? We're on Friday now. So
yes, it's the weekend.
Ready
Also,
for the weekend.
So before we started recording, Jasmine was like, let me crack open my can. And she opened a can. And I was like, what are you drinking? So she's drinking a Dr. Pepper. And I'm just wondering, like, does it have caffeine? Because I'm like, if I drink something with caffeine at 8 p.m. at night, I'm not sleeping for the whole night.
Really?
I'm like, what? Any caffeine after 4 p.m., I'm like this. Ah.
You know what? Sometimes I drink energy drinks. Sometimes I start an energy drink at like 4
I'm just
p.m.
going to sleep.
And I can drink, sometimes I could drink an energy drink till like 7 p.m. and I could go to sleep 10 minutes after. Easy. I can sleep anytime, anywhere.
Wow, I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
I could really.
I had an
I've always
energy
been the
drink.
same.
I'm awake 24 hours. I'll be like, woohoo! Run in the
I've
house.
always been the same. Like my husband always says, he's so jealous because literally my head hits the pillow. If I'm ready to go to sleep, I'm gone. Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
You will be having it easy then at this international competitions. I have been talking to Harriet mostly every day. And she's like, I'm just having like 2 hours sleep every night because they have so many activities and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would find it so hard to just fall asleep in those 2 hours or be awake 24/7. So you will be fine. You will be like, time for bed in the bus, time for bed.
I feel like, you know what, a normal day I'd be fine. But whenever I'm in those sorts of environments, it's the adrenaline. When I'm in competition mode, the adrenaline, then I lay and overthink, and the adrenaline from the day is still there. So I do find it harder than normal. If I'm excited, if I had an exciting day and then stood on the buzz, so then I would find it harder to sleep. But my life is obviously not that exciting on the day-to-day because I'm like,
yeah, goodbye. It's time for bed. If only we had these exciting lives.
So what about your week?
My week has been, yeah.
The last few days.
I was gonna say, I answered something about sleep, and I'm like, what? No, it's been good. Nothing major, just like a lot of work. It's starting to feel better. I'm having a sweet now for my throat, but after this finishes, I'm just gonna be coughing all the time, so I will keep muting myself. But yeah, today I finally went for a walk because this whole week is like, was it last week? Well, when I was in Milan and then in Spain, obviously I couldn't go to the gym or do anything. Then the following week, I got so sick that I just couldn't do anything. And this week I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. And today I was like, okay, I have the strength now to go for a walk. I was like, oh, I miss my walk so much. It was so nice. So nice.
You know what? When I was running through summer, I've just felt so much better, like mentally more than anything. I just felt so much better for just getting out and getting the fresh air and like headspace every day.
Yes.
And when I'm in the habit of that, I love it. And then I fall out of it. And then it's so hard to get yourself out there and
It
going
is.
again. Yeah.
It is because I've been like, I was like, this week I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna go and just gonna do this. And
Mhm.
it's like, oh, my body doesn't. It's still like
Yeah.
not 100%.
Mhm.
I could have forced myself to do it, but yeah, I think it was like the best excuse to just like, stay home. But today I was like, haven't left my house since Monday.
Mhm.
I need I need to get I mean, I'm happy in my house. We've already talked about this, like,
Yeah, yeah.
because in my house with with my cats and everything, but I'm like, I need fresh air. I need something.
Yeah.
And then going down the stairs, I almost fell down the stairs today. And I was like, okay, no, you need you need to go out. This is just too much. Your brain is foggy. Everything is foggy. You just
Yeah,
need to get
yeah.
out.
It's
So that's
harder now, it's cold though. It's cold and it makes you not wanna go out.
I know. Well, today actually was like 17 degrees. I mean,
What?
when I looked out the window, I was like, what a miserable day. Terrible. I was like, let me check the weather to see what type of coat I need because obviously once I start walking, I start getting warm. So I cannot wear
Yeah.
something too thick if it's not going to be too cold.
Mhm.
I was like, 17 degrees?
What? It wasn't
This is
17
awesome.
degrees
No, no, it
here.
was. It was.
No, but here, I mean, where I am, it was freezing. It can't have been. It
And
was
we just
cold.
only been like an hour, and we're an hour and a half away. So it's not that far.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it felt cold.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had sun. Yesterday
Mhm.
was warm like that. Like we had the sun was beaming yesterday. I actually got hot and had to take my jacket off.
Oh, nice.
But today it was cold. It was like
Here,
frosty.
here yesterday was miserable. Like dark, like it's like cloudy, like there is no sun. This whole
You
week, no
stole our
sun.
sunshine then from yesterday. You took it.
I mean, not the sunshine, but the heat, probably, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there was no sun this whole week. It's been like one of those that you wake up and you're like, "Ugh." No, in the sense of like there is no sun, you would like to
Mhm.
see some type of like sun rays coming in, but no, it was cloudy AF,
Oh,
but warm-ish.
yeah.
Not
Not for
too
me.
bad, not too bad. But yeah, my week has been just basically that work, Miss Grand International, just keep watching what Harriet is up to,
Mhm.
and that's it, basically. Not
Yeah.
much.
I've been drawn in. I've been
Mhm.
watching all the stuff happening at Grand. It's nice to have like it's nice that there's so much being shared. She's sharing so much that I think
Mhm.
it's like pulling me it's making me interested in everything else happening at Grand, which I
Yeah.
don't normally follow as much. It's nice. I feel like I'm like getting a bit of everything from Grand.
Well, Monday is national costume, so
So we'll get to see what it is. Mhm.
let's see. And then next week is your birthday,
It
and there is not
is.
gonna be an episode before that, so happy
Oh,
birthday!
yay! I'm 32 on my birthday.
October 15th,
Yeah.
guys, because
Mhm.
this is up on October 16th?
This will be going out the day after. Yeah, I'll be 32 when
I
this
think
goes
so.
out. Yeah. This goes out on the 16th. When you're listening to this, I've already turned 32.
How do you feel?
Yeah. So
In the
old
future, how do you
and
feel?
frail.
Oh, if you're frail, my goodness.
I'm starting to
What
go
am
for me
I?
for I'm going starting to go for me for my Zimmer frame.
I'm
This year, I think is gonna be the first year in a long time that I've worked on my birthday.
mm,
I don't normally work on my birthday, but I'm teaching on my birthday, and it's, like, very difficult. Like, it's awkward to have days off when you're teaching,
yeah,
and it's too much hassle for me to bother, if you know what I
yeah.
mean. I've got the day off after my birthday, so I haven't done it yet. Hopefully, the day this comes out, I'll have had a lovely spa day because that's what I'd like to
Right.
do, but I'm holding off because 'cause I'm hoping, like, last minute deals will come out from spas.
Oh, yeah. Good.
So I'm just,
Yeah.
like, really holding out. I'm gonna
Mhm.
book it maybe a few days before. So, I have to work, but the next day I will relax.
Perfect. Well, our guest is in the lobby already waiting. Let me tell you what this episode is going to be all about. We are going to be talking all about IVF equality, and I think without further ado, we're just going to introduce you into our guest. We have today with us on the podcast Katie Rollins. She is the founder and CEO of Fertility, the Fertility Action charity. And she's also one of the persons that started the Fertility Access campaign. So welcome to the podcast, Katie. How are you?
I'm so well, thank you. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, very good. So I did like a really tiny, really quick intro of yourself, but obviously we always ask our guests to introduce themselves for all of our listeners. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. That was a lovely intro. Yeah, so I run the Fertility Access campaign. I'm leading it in Parliament at the moment. It was co-founded with a lovely friend and colleague of mine, Amber Itso, who has stepped away at the moment because she's now thankfully pregnant with her second little baby on the way, which is very exciting. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Fertility Action charity. So we are a UK registered charity aiming to help and support people across the UK with education, advocacy, and empowerment support, particularly focused on equity in our advocacy work with the IVF Postcode lottery campaign.
Perfect. Then maybe you can tell us a little bit more about like how you started Fertility Action.
Yeah, of course. So the charity came from my own personal experience as a patient. So my husband and I were trying for 7 years before we eventually conceived. We had 3 funded rounds on the NHS, which was very lucky. As we know, in this day and age, 3 cycles is almost unheard of now, sadly. And we self-funded 2 rounds. We actually self-funded 1 round and then realized that that was all we were going to be able to afford. And then some of our family kindly stepped in and funded a final round for us, which resulted in our twins. Who are now 8. So we were incredibly lucky, but actually going through the process made me realize there was a huge gap when it came to fertility in conversations, in knowledge. And I've always had a passion for women's health, but looking at reproductive health, it seemed really shocking to me that there was this inequity in access to medical treatment. And the more I looked into things like endometriosis with, sometimes an 8-year waiting list for people to be seen by their GPs, I started researching PCOS. I started looking at adenomyosis, POI, and the more I looked into these conditions, it just seemed that there was so many women seemingly underserved on a medical level that needed some listening to. Really, they're talking about it, and there are people that have been talking about this for years. This isn't a new concept. And whilst I had my little babies, I had been thinking for a while about the need for support going through fertility treatment, because there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of humiliation when you go through that treatment. And also, if you think about it, this part of our body, we are continually exposed to medical professionals from the waist down. It's quite a humiliating and quite an uncomfortable procedure. And lots of us don't like going even for smear tests. But when you're going through IVF, so many people are regularly doing these procedures, and you're having scan after scan, you're injecting your body regularly, which can be so difficult, particularly at work and when you're around lots of other people. I found the bruising was really difficult on my body, something I didn't really know what I was doing very well with the injections. They really hurt. I didn't like the look of my body as it was swelling with all these drugs. And so I think there were so many things, as well as the emotional turmoil that goes through the 2-week wait, as well as your drugs that you're going through, that I just felt that there just didn't seem to be anything out there for people to, and there were charities out there. I just wasn't aware of them at the time. And I think, to be honest, they were doing a really good job. But the thing that I felt was missing was that the relatability. I wanted to see a woman that looked like me who was going through this process. And I wanted to find someone that I could speak to that really understood, that I could just sit with a cup of tea in my pajamas and say, do you know what? This is really shit. This is really hard. And I'm really struggling. And I'm a bit embarrassed to say I'm struggling, because I think as a woman that's been, part of a team that runs our family business for years, it wasn't in my character to say I'm failing, I can't do this. It was always, I'm gonna do this. Whatever is not within my reach, I'm gonna make sure it is in my reach, and I'm gonna do it. But the thing is, with fertility treatments, that gets taken out of your hands. So I just felt I wanted to create a space, whatever that looked like, where people could come and just be honest and be seen, be validated, and have genuine chats as well as laughs as well, because it can be really heavy, this process. And I feel that women together can just be incredible. I've actually just been out with two of my girlfriends today, and it's just amazing how just sitting around a table as women, you can really help each other and lift each other up. And there's such a mixture of knowledge and intelligence that you can garner from one another. And so I felt that if I was able to create a community just to start with, which was the beginning of the charity idea, then that was going to help. So we just did it. We started these free Zoom support calls. We set up an Instagram page. We started talking about the unfairness and the inequity and the lack of equality surrounding access to medical treatment for IVF and fertility treatments. And the group started to grow. The community really bonded because we're meeting weekly, and they grew this really strong bond, started to meet up in real life with each other. And then I started the application process for a charity, which it was much harder than I realized. There's a lot to do to set up a charity. And eventually we got charity status in February this year, on the 21st of February, which was really exciting. And that came just after being in Parliament for the first time for the Fertility Access campaign. So the charity was set up on the basis that we wanted to provide simply education, equity, and empowerment, and particularly empowerment for women and reproductive health. And then obviously in January, we decided, well, we can work on all of this. We can raise money through the charity once it's registered, and we will hopefully be able to fund as well as support women and people who are going through this process. And so I guess that the charity was born. It happened. It began. January, we went to Parliament and launched the Fertility Access campaign because we'd seen that the local ICBs, or integrated care boards, where people were applying for funding for fertility treatments, it was so sporadic across the UK, and it had been the same. I mean, this has been going on for years and years. This is not new to anyone, an IVF postcode lottery. So I reached out to Amber, and that was May of the previous year, and said, look, and she'd done amazingly in her postcode in Cambridgeshire. So in her county, she was able to campaign and change their ruling within Cambridgeshire, which was massive and such a game changer. So I thought, she is the only person I want to work with because she knows what she's doing. She's done this. So I approached her, and together we got our heads together and finally launched the campaign in January. And we quickly got traction from MPs, and slowly it's grown and grown. We've done another event in Parliament this year, and we had more than 30 MPs in attendance. We've now in progress starting the ball rolling with some colleagues who are also doing some incredible campaigns. That's Laura Rose Thorogood and Becky Kearns, who I've been working really closely with. And we are looking to garner more and more MPs to form anytime soon an all-party parliamentary group for fertility, which will be incredible because we'll be able to have more say on policy. And really what we're going to be asking for there is that we mandate the ruling so that the integrated care boards actually have a mandated policy that they have to adhere to the NICE guidelines. So the campaign kicked off in January, was brilliant. There's been great support for it. Obviously, we are the only UK national campaign for the IVF postcode lottery, which is brilliant. We've got the Fertility Justice campaign, which is run by Laura Rose Thorogood. So Fertility Action is a part of that, and she is one of our trustees. So that's really looking at access for the LGBTQIA plus community and looking at actually the massive inequalities there for so many people. And then Becky and Fertility Matters at Work, they're really looking at fertility in the workplace. So her and her team with Natalie and Claire are doing an incredible job there, actually working on workplace policy and seeing how we can help women at work and also men. And this is a big part of what I talk about as well. But the male side of fertility it's funny because in the medical sector, and particularly in reproductive health, women are the ones that are neglected. But actually, when it comes to fertility, men are completely out of the equation here. And we see so often men haven't been barely tested, or they've had a test, but it's a very basic level. And then later down the line, after many losses that women have had to endure, they then go into hyper focus on the man and find something that actually might have helped the process earlier on had they have diagnosed it sooner. So there's a lot of work to be done in this space. That was a very long answer. I hope that wasn't too long.
No, it's good. I
Sorry.
feel like you've painted like a perfect picture. It was all important information,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the question that I wanted to ask you was, I mentioned the podcast episode that we were recording today actually at the school pickup with to some of the other mums, and actually quite a lot of people, I guess unless you've been through IVF or know somebody who has been through IVF, quite a lot of people don't know about the fact that different places have different access to
Yeah.
however many rounds you can do and those kind of things. So can you just explain a bit more what kind of discrepancies there are? Like how big are the differences in areas of what you can get and what you can't get?
So there are 42 ICBs across the UK. ICB stands for Integrated Care Boards, and they're the organisations that give out the funding, the NHS funding for fertility treatments. Now, of those 42, only 2 in the UK are currently adhering to the NICE guidelines. NICE guidelines recommend that everybody should be entitled to three cycles of IVF or fertility treatment. So sometimes it tends to just be specified on IVF, but the disparities come where one postcode might say we are going to fund up to age 41, 3 rounds. And in this postcode, we're going to do 1 cycle for age 42 and 43. You might go to another postcode, Hampshire, for example, where they cut off everything at 35. So depending on where you live and your age, simply just looking at that, it's going to be vastly different depending on where you are. And that's because the integrated care boards are allowed to choose what funding they allocate. Now, if they want to change that, they have to go into a consultation period with their local area. So they will publicly announce that they are going into consultation. However, in my own postcode in Sussex, recently this year, that changed overnight. So there was no consultation. And because of the deficit of the integrated care boards, and we're seeing this more and more, in order to save money, they've just cut fertility treatment. Now, I absolutely understand that we have got a lot of people in our country with varying medical conditions. And I understand we don't want to be wasting money by any stretch. But what seems to be happening is because fertility treatment has this visibility in the media as often alongside a cosmetic treatment rather than a medical treatment, despite it being diagnosed by the World Health Organization as a disease of the reproductive system, people still look at it next to, I mean, so often we've seen it next to cosmetic dentistry and things like this when it's listed. And actually, what is so important to me and to the organization is what we're trying to convey is that this is so life-changing for people. I'm one of those people who, if I hadn't have become a mother, I don't know how I would be. And we've seen women, we've spoken to women who, quite frankly, have openly announced that they have felt incredibly low. Some have been suicidal when they've heard that they're not going to be able to access funding. I know one couple, a heterosexual couple, that had moved from one county to another county because of how many rounds of IVF they were allowed to have. And then that ICB changed the policy. So they had left all of their friends and all of their family and moved to another part of our country. And then the integrated care board changed. It's just not something that we should be delivering in this day and age as a compassionate service for people. And I think the NHS is so stretched. We absolutely know that. But the heartbreaking consequences of not funding fertility treatments is unthinkable. And I think the disparities across the UK, it's not just about age. For some, it's about BMI. For some, and this tends to be across the board, their BMI, if it's within a certain weight category, they will be allowed to have fertility treatments. However, if they're above and they simply can't get it down, they have to fund their treatment. Or for some, they may actually be below the BMI. The one that's the most common that we hear that people find incredibly unfair is when their partner has biological children from a previous relationship, which means that they are not entitled to funding for their biological child.
That's crazy.
Which I think is incredible, really. It's heartbreaking, and we see it daily. I mean, we have these support groups twice a week, and we're just about to expand because the demand there is huge. And not just for the women, the men are incredibly impacted by this too. And also for same-sex couples. So we see quite often with female same-sex couples, in some areas they're allowed a certain number of cycles. For some, they have to self-fund 6 or 12 rounds of cycles. And it's just not achievable for people on your average salary. Like when you look at the last survey that was done, it was something like £13,500 inclusive of medication, travel costs, and all of the other expenses included. And actually, £13,500 for a round of IVF. How many of those can most people afford on your average salary? So we need to be looking at how we can do this better as a country. We need to also be supporting our doctors and NHS systems. And I think GPs are not informed enough, particularly about male fertility. So it's something that we're really looking at the moment, at providing education and resources for GPs and actually seeing how we can make their job easier, because these GPs are expected to know so much. They have to understand such a huge amount of things to be able to help patients. And actually, we're not blaming the GPs in any way, but what we do know, and we ran a survey with the Royal College of GPs, which showed us that 80.6% of the GPs surveyed didn't know anything about male fertility. They had had no education or very little. So they had never looked at like a varicocele, for example, which is a lump in the testicles which can overheat the sperm and affect their ability to reproduce. So there's so many things. Even like supplementation was lacking in understanding. They didn't do physical examinations for most of them, and there's so many areas there where just simply a little bit more education and resources could really prove a huge difference. And you know, maybe that would save the NHS money in the future. Maybe if we were diagnosing men and we were finding more conditions with men that were affecting the fertility process, would we be saving the NHS money? And would we be saving women going through from these treatments that maybe don't need them because the infertility is on the male side? We may be promoting natural fertility. Who knows? But I believe we need to be investing in a lot more research, and actually supporting both men and women and every person that wants to become a parent. And at the moment we're failing them, and we can definitely do better.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, you know, you said like we need to do better as a country, and that's true, because we are going now through a phase that our generation, you know, there might not be enough money to help with our pensions because there is not enough people working.
Exactly.
So not being able to bring more children into the world in this country is just going to affect the next generations that are coming after us.
Yeah.
So I think we should be actually looking into, we have a huge amount of couples that are going through fertility issues. They are being younger and younger every year. It's not like something that is just like when you are after 35 or anything like that. I've seen when I was going to my fertility appointments, very young people that have to go through this. So we know that things are changing. We need to start investing in this, because there's not going to be doctors at the end either to help any of us, because there is not going to be enough people in the country.
Yeah, I agree. And as we've seen that, you know, we've seen research papers, and in the last 50 years, male fertility on its own has declined by 50%. We know that. We've also seen a huge decline in NHS access to IVF treatments. But separately to that, we need to be looking at the bigger picture. It's now becoming unaffordable to even try to become a parent. But when you do become a parent, when you look at the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the gender pay gap, we're looking at some serious, bigger issues here. Being able to enable people to access fertility treatments is just one section of a much, much bigger picture. But this is something we can do. And in other countries, they are doing it. And people are starting to look at what we're doing globally now. There's a number of companies and organizations now, and we've been part of some of their boards and discussions looking at, well, what are they doing in the rest of the world? Because actually, when you look at it, even from a European perspective, the UK, we are not performing well at the moment for fertility treatments. And actually looking at the bigger picture, we have a declining birth rate globally. We should be at 2.1. On the last count, we were at 1.42. And we're not nearly at the Korea level. I mean, Korea is right at the bottom, but we're really low, and we're some of the worst in Europe, in the UK. And we need to be thinking bigger. We need to zoom out. We need to be looking at, okay, well, what chemicals are we using in our day-to-day life? What's our nutrition and diet and lifestyle looking at? What holistic things could we be looking at that actually balance our bodies and our minds to make sure that we're in the optimum state if we were to look at going through fertility treatments? So I think it's not a simple conversation of getting the money off the NHS and actually funding people through these drug-fueled processes, let's be honest. I think we need to be looking at how can we promote natural fertility, and in the cases where we can't, what does that look like? Shall we be looking at men more? What research needs to be invested there? And then when we have the women at the GP surgery, how are we holding them through this process? Because we see so often anxiety, trauma, the amount of psychological need and counseling for the men and the women going through this process, that at the moment they're being underserved. And this is our purpose. This is why we're here. We want to make sure more people are talking about this, but on a bigger level. And there is research now that's telling us that, you know, our kitchen sprays that we're using that are full of chemicals, and there's certain pans that we're cooking with in the kitchen, even basically using plastic Tupperware, we know that affects the food that we're eating. But actually, this isn't known. Not enough people are talking about this yet. And I think in 50 years' time, when we don't have enough of a younger population to support the aging population, and actually that's going to be us, it's the generation behind us that's going to be supporting us. And if that generation isn't big enough, we haven't got enough taxpayers. So we won't have the support to be able to carry on in the society that we're in at the moment. So this is a really, really big conversation that, to be honest, I just don't think enough people are having.
No. And this is why, like, you know, we wanted to have you on the podcast, because obviously we want to talk about things that not many people talk about, and obviously try to see if we can make a difference somehow, even if it's just reaching like 10 people. At least, you know, it's 10 people that will talk about this with maybe another 10 people, and slowly trying to get the word out. But, you know, one of the things that you said is very important, is that we don't test enough before we get to the point where people are needing to have fertility treatments. And I still compare a lot of things with the way that things are in Spain, right? So we have our NHS there. Maybe it's the same thing. They might not just check you straight away for like the man's sperm, for example, unless you ask for it. But, you know, we do have private medical insurances that we pay for, similar to what you pay here to Bupa and all of the other different companies. We pay pretty much like the same amount of money. But I have a list of practices that I can go to, and I can just ask for an appointment and request what I want and just get it done. So if we could have something like that here in the UK, where, you know, maybe the NHS is not able to cover it, but you're paying monthly for a private medical insurance, so you can just go to the urologist, I guess for men would be, to get a sperm test. That would be much easier, because as you said, like many times is the male factor that is not being taken into account, because we always look at the woman, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes with a basic, I mean, I'm not a medical professional, so this is from the doctors and the specialists that I work with, but my understanding is that from a basic semen analysis, there's only so much information that you can get from that. And there are so many conditions that affect male fertility. We're not just talking about a lump on the testicles. We're talking about, you know, historic use of steroids. Maybe they've had an operation where they've had something removed around their groin, you know, like a hernia operation historically. Maybe they had undistended testicles as a child. Maybe they have oxidative stress and they had no idea that this was going on within their body. Maybe their sperm has DNA fragmentation, which research has linked to recurrent loss in female. At the moment, that's not credible. I mean, it's credible, the research is there, but it's not credible enough that it's gone through into NICE guidelines. But I think we'll see in future years, potentially, that research is going to be shown, and it may become this credible research that we're looking at, and it could be, you know, this is the reason why this is happening. So I think that we need to be investing so much more in the research surrounding this. But I do think as well, there needs to be an interest in understanding the male side as well as the female side. And I'm all for looking after the women here, but I think that if we look at the men more, we potentially can reduce what's going on with the women anyway.
Something that we've talked about quite a lot, about lots of different things, it always seems to come back to this, but the education when you're younger, I just think isn't good enough. So
No.
I always talk about, like, once I got to a certain age and then I just got put on the pill,
Yeah.
for example. And I think at that age you don't know, they don't explain what the pill does or how that might affect you, or those kind of things. And it's probably the same with men, that they might not, you're taught the very basic things at school, aren't you, about your bodies and stuff, but nothing else really from that point. So quite often I think as women we can go on a pill, and then that can mask things that we then don't know are there until we come off a pill, and then we realize, we've talked about this before, like endometriosis and things like that then might come to light at a later point. And I think we're not really, it's not until we're thinking about having children. Like, I was on the pill right up until I decided to have my daughter, and then came off the pill, and I had all sorts of symptoms from coming off the pill. I was having heart palpitations, loads of different things that were going on. I'm very, very fortunate I was able to conceive naturally after coming off the pill, but I even was experiencing unusual things. And I think there's a lack of education about that point between when you get old enough to have your first period up until the point that where you decide you want to have a baby. You're not taught to even think about it until the day you decide you want to have a baby, I feel like. So there's a big gap there.
Which can be too late sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we've seen that with things like ectopic pregnancies, where women don't know. They don't even know what an ectopic pregnancy is, sadly, until they're in that situation. And so to improve this education surrounding reproductive health and sexual health generally is going to really improve everything for everyone. Even simple things that we hear is when men go for a semen analysis, then they get given a pot. They think they have to fill the pot with the semen, and a basic semen sample is usually less than 5 mils, so it's the tiniest little bit in a pot. But again, because of education, they think if it's not full, they're not manly, they haven't produced enough of the. And actually, another thing is, if they have produced an ejaculate, they wouldn't know if that has got sperm in it. So just because they produce a fluid doesn't mean they've got anything swimming within that fluid. So it's basic things like this that would just help so much. Even things like some guys have a diagnosis where their ejaculate actually goes backwards into their body. Again, until I started working in this sector, I didn't even know that was a thing. But by talking about this and actually having these sorts of conversations, it just means someone might be listening and something might ring a bell. A varicocele, the last that I was told by one of the professionals that I'm working with, it's something like 41% of infertile men have a varicocele. So that's a big chunk of men whose sperm is getting overheated. And so it's not going to work. It's highly likely that, this is going to cause a problem. Yet if you walk into an office tomorrow and say, put your hand up if you know what a varicocele is, no one is going to know the answer to that. So these are such important, crucial nuggets that we need to be getting out there. I think as well, like you were saying, Jasmine, the whole not knowing when you can get pregnant. So we get taught all the time, don't we, at school, how not to get pregnant, condoms on cucumbers or whatever
How
system we
fast
had.
you can get pregnant. They look at you and then you're pregnant.
Yeah, exactly. But no one tells you how we do get pregnant. And actually, what does that look like? What does the ovulation window look like? How do you use ovulation strips? How do you monitor your cervical mucus? It's something that, again, basic knowledge, but actually lots of people don't. I can imagine some people now will be going, what is cervical mucus? What should it look like? And there are things that we can be looking out for with that. But again, we're just not talking about it. And it's a bit embarrassing as well, isn't it? So I think that's why the conversations aren't happening.
That's what I wanted. Like, literally, my next question was going to be about. It's just like, do you feel like there is not that much people talking about it, and especially as well, like fertility side of things, because of embarrassment, because they feel ashamed of the fact that they are not able to get pregnant, and especially men, they might feel like, it's because of me, so we don't really want to talk about this topic. And how, in my case, like sometimes if I don't talk about it, how alienating that can feel, and how alone you can feel when you're going through something like that. You're not opening up with people and talking about it.
Yeah, and actually I think it applies to all people and genders, to be honest, because for me, when it was my personal story, I was incredibly ashamed of my body because I felt like I felt like a failure. I felt like my body was failing. I wasn't able to do what seemingly other women could just do really easily. And so you end up thinking and feeling that you're broken as a woman. And it feels like as a woman, it's something that you should just be able to do. And, you know, if you're meant to be a mother, your body will do this. So I definitely went through a process, and we hear this loads with the patients that we work with, where you think, what's wrong with me? Or have I done something to deserve that I shouldn't ever be a mother? And you start to overthink, you start to spiral about why this might be. And I think you can become the world's biggest critic of yourself. And I think the same for guys, you know, we still have this macho bravado thing of, you know, like how many swimmers has he got kind of vibe. And actually, it's ridiculous because so many men experience infertility. And it is really common now. There's so many things nowadays that can affect fertility. You know, 20 years ago, you didn't have a mobile phone in your jeans pocket next to your testicles all day. Now you do. And that could affect how well your sperm is working with a number of other things. You know, cyclists now, they say that if you've got very restrictive underwear around the testicles, that can affect your sperm. So yeah, I think there is a lot to consider. And I also think men with men, it's not an easy conversation. It's not, as women, we're great at talking, aren't we? Here's a perfect example of it. We're very good at having a chat and just getting it off our chest. And like you were saying, Jasmine, in the playground, you know, as mums, that we're having this chat. And I think even when you're younger, as young women, you're quite often in groups together chatting about things. We talk about periods, we talk about our bodies. But men generally, that's not how they work quite often. And I think it can be difficult when they get to this point in life because they feel ashamed, but there is nowhere for them to go to have that discussion, which is why we partner with an organization called Test Him, because they offer support groups, which is just for men. So they are all together as males together. We've actually got an event coming up in November where both the women and the men are going to come together in Farringdon in London, and we're doing a panel chat all about fertility. So the men can, it's actually very much focused on the male fertility side, but it's about kind of getting people together in person and making it not such a stigmatized topic, I guess.
Yeah. In my case, instead of ashamed, I was angry. I was so angry. I'm still angry.
There's a lot of anger that comes out. In fact, I don't know if you found this, Soraya, that I found boxing was really good for me when I was going through this to kind of get the anger out. And actually, I was getting really fit at the same time. So it was a double whammy. But it was,
I might
I
try
think,
that. I have boxing gloves, so I might try that.
maybe give it a go. Yeah. And I think as well, people get really conflicting feelings. We see quite a lot in the support groups that you'll have someone who is, you know, someone at work has come in and they've just announced a pregnancy. And so you feel venomous. You feel so jealous and so wishing that was you. And then you're angry because they've come in and said that to the office. But then you're also happy for them because maybe you really like that person and you think, I'm so pleased that you're not going through what I'm going through and that you're about to have a baby. What a lovely thing. And it can be such a mind mess for people to have this kind of web of feelings because you're like, am I jealous? Am I angry? Or am I happy for them? And actually you're all of those things and probably 5 more things. But it's, I think when you're then in a room, in a support group where everybody's like, yeah, I felt that. Yeah, I felt that. You go, oh, okay. So I'm not weird. This is totally
crazy.
normal. Yeah. Exactly. Some of our group actually go to rage rooms. They're apparently a thing in the UK where you go and like smash plates and
I
like,
want to go to one of those.
yeah, maybe you should go. I'll come with you. Sounds like great fun.
Well,
Yeah, I will as
make a
well.
date. Let's make it a
Road trip.
date. Let's all go to a race room.
I was just thinking, I feel like something that must really affect people is quite often when you decide that you're going to try and get pregnant, you don't really, like a lot of the time, you don't tell anybody. You know, like in the workplace, you think, you don't say that. You normally think, well, I would wait until I was pregnant and then I was a few months into being pregnant and then I would announce it and then I would, and all of that. So I imagine that adds to the loneliness of it because when, especially if you're first trying, and then once you're going through IVF treatment, you kind of need to share that with people. But then that probably adds another layer of almost pressure that you feel internally.
I think as well, there's that anxiety. I think I remember feeling, and we hear this a lot too, that you wish you were that blessed that you just got pregnant and had a baby, because when you go through the fertility treatment and the kind of process of this, and when it's been going on for years, just because you get a positive pregnancy test doesn't mean anything. Because in my situation and in so many, you may have had a positive test and then it's gone on to a loss before your 12 weeks or after your 12 weeks or at whatever stage of the pregnancy. And I think the reality is having any sort of positive test doesn't mean you're celebrating, and certainly doesn't mean you're telling anyone, because you are terrified of getting this baby to term and out of your body. So everybody is so focused on, I am so terrified to even move. I had a lady the other day, she was terrified to walk after an embryo transfer because she thought it might fall out. And I remember feeling the same. I was scared to go for a wee in case it affected my pregnancy, And I thought, well, if I have a wee, what if the embryo comes out and I won't be pregnant? That is obviously never going to happen. That isn't how it works.
Yeah.
But these thoughts come into your head, and even, I remember the thought of going on a trampoline or like skipping. Absolutely not. What I wanted to do was lie down on my back with my legs in the air for as long as possible to hope that this little baby stuck. And we all do these mad things because mentally in our heads we think this is gonna get me pregnant, it's gonna keep my pregnancy, and I'm finally gonna get my dream of becoming a mother. And that's the end goal for everyone, but it's such a difficult and bumpy process.
Yeah. I do remember, like, after obviously for the transfer, you need to drink a lot of water because they need to see your bladder needs to be full. And then they do the transfer and it's like, okay, now you can go to the toilet. And I was like, what? I mean, I really need a wee. But
Yeah.
really, do I need to do it? Like, is it okay to just go for a wee right after you just...
And you're busting for it as well, because they make you fill up loads, don't they? And you're like, I'm going to wee now. Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. So what's in the future? What's next for Fertility Access and Fertility Action?
So we now have a full board of some incredible trustees. We're expanding our advisory board, and we're also looking for some more people to join the team. So we're looking for a treasurer at the moment. So if you've got anyone who listens that wants to be a treasurer for the charity, let me know. We've got a number of onboards going on for facilitators for our support groups. So we're about to launch a load more support groups as well. We've got a YouTube channel that we've just done a load more recordings as a resource so people can go and find specific episodes and information. And we're also looking at going into schools and doing more education projects, as well as I'm actually going over to Ireland on Tuesday to Stormont to speak to the MLAs, the Irish equivalent of MPs, about fertility over there as well. So we're trying to do a lot of advocacy work at the top and fundraise as well, from the other perspective, so that if it doesn't work, if our advocacy doesn't work and we don't get there, we're hoping to raise enough money that we're going to be able to help people to be able to access the treatments the other way.
And if somebody lives in an area, we talked about the postcode differences and all of that kind of thing. If somebody lives in an area where they feel like they're being unfairly treated, I mean, it still baffles me because, I'm assuming everyone all pays the same tax and insurance.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can even get away with it being different in different places. But if they are in that situation and they can't get as many rounds of IVF or whatever it might be from them, is there anything they can do? Can they do to try and make a difference?
The first thing to do is, if for any reason they've been turned down, their integrated care board, they can ask for an individual funding request, an IFR, which is where they put their case forward as to why they believe that they should be having this treatment. The other thing that's really helpful is to get your MP on board. So talk to your MP, make your MP aware of the Fertility Access campaign or Fertility Action, because we're already doing so much work with MPs. They could join the all-party parliamentary group as a member. They could come to any of our informational events within Parliament. And by educating your MP about what's going on, you're going to have a lot more sway with what happens. They will have direct connections with your ICB as well, and continue to support the campaign work that we're doing. So if we have any events where they can join, we have template letters where they can write to their MPs. They don't have to do any of the writing. They just download the letter. But also reach out to us, because we're always there. We're always able to advise as much as we can, and we'll always support. We regularly have messages coming in from people who are looking for funding and they just don't quite know where they are and they just need a little bit of guidance. And obviously myself and and the rest of the guys that work with me, most of us have got personal experience as well. So we've really been there, so we get it. So you'll be treated with a lot of compassion as well. And we'll always do our best to make sure that we can help you get the best we can. Sadly, we can't always promise that we can get what they want. But we're hoping that one day we're going to get to a place where actually people get this equality and access, and everyone gets what they need to start the family they've dreamed of, really. So one day, fingers crossed. We just need to find a really rich person to invest in the charity. So if you know
Well, if
any of
I win
those
the
as
Euro
well,
Millions, don't worry, I'll be there.
yes, thank you.
Because like they are expensive. Fertility treatments are expensive, and it's crazy how different it is in different countries, right? So I did my first round with the NHS because I'm in Cambridge. So thank you, Amber, very much. I love you. Thank you.
Wow,
Because of you, I
amazing.
was able to do my first round. Then my second round, I went to Spain to do it. And the difference in price from what I paid in Spain to what I'm going to have to pay here is literally, I'm paying here exactly double the amount.
Wow, that's
of what I
really
would pay
interesting.
in Spain. And it's, the drugs are exactly the same ones.
And the irony is that if people are going outside of the UK, they are not HFEA regulated treatments, because the HFEA obviously can't have say or sway over what happens abroad. So, ideally you want patients to be using UK clinics. That's the best outcome. So we should be working really hard to do that, so that we can support everyone within the country. Although from what I've heard, treatments in Spain and Greece and a number of places have been exemplary, that people are going to have. But why lose patients across the sea when we could be looking after them here? There's so much that could be done.
Exactly. And I mean, as I said, like I'm going now through the process of getting everything done here in the UK and just going with my clinic now versus what I get for the price here versus what I got for the price in Spain is like, why do I need to pay separate for certain tests? Why I need to pay so much just to get my embryos to a 5-day blastocyst? Why do I need to, why are all of those extra costs that I need to add here
You need to
that
speak
I
to
get included with the main price in another country? Why is like that? I mean, obviously, just I know why, the profit that the clinic wants to make, right? But, it's like in other countries, they're doing it. It's working fine. They get a lot of patients coming in. So why is the need to price up so high and make it so difficult for people to afford a treatment?
I think this is being addressed at the moment. I know there's a board that work with the HFEA that, and some of those are also part of the NICE Guidelines Committee. And the NICE Guidelines draft have just come out, and they're saying that they'll be published in the middle of March next year. We've been waiting for those for a very long time. But I think that they are really looking at add-ons as well at clinics and seeing what is needed and what is potentially an unnecessary additional cost, some might think. So there's a lot of research and chats going on in the regulation of that. So it's something I think people are aware of. I think also in the defense, I guess, of the clinics, most clinics that I've encountered, they just really want the best for the patient, although obviously they are money-making businesses. The people within those clinics really want the best for their patients. So I think for most of them within the UK, they are doing their absolute best within the regulations and the guidelines. I think there probably are some that are trying to make a good buck out of it. But I think the reality is there is a lot of work now going on in the kind of medical side of things at the HFEA. And there's a lot of organisations in the fertility sector who are really working hard to make sure the patients are at the centre of everything that's happening. And I hope with more and more of us coming together to be a voice of advocacy for patients, we are going to see a change in the landscape for people across the country. And it needs to happen. This isn't something we can talk about anymore. We need to actually take action on it and make change. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, because all of the add-ons, I mean, they make sense, right? They're like extra stuff, but the price tag is so high that sometimes you're like, can it be a little bit lower so we can all afford it?
I think some of the add-ons are currently being questioned in the latest NICE guidelines, and different people will have different opinions. If you speak to Emma, the embryologist, the chair of our charity, she has lots of thoughts on those, and each one is its own discussion point for the add-ons. But there are certainly, if you look at the HFEA traffic light system, they try to, well, they guide patients on what is actually a necessary or accredited approved add-on treatment and what is actually not proven or has research to back it. That was a terrible explanation, but you know what I mean.
And if you are somebody who isn't going through this actual process, so say if you're not going through fertility treatment or anything, but you just feel very passionately after listening to this that you want to help, how can you help? Like, I definitely, like, being on this journey and hearing so much about it over the past few months, like, feel passionately about helping people. How can they get involved in what you're doing to
So
support
the main
others?
thing for us is we need more people talking about it. You don't have to have been through the process, but like you say, if you feel passionately about this need, and I mean, it's 1 in 6 people in the UK. This is a lot of people that are needing the support. We all know someone who's affected by it. We need to be coming together as one collaborative effort. So that is writing to your MPs. Maybe if you can fundraise for our charity, amazing. Maybe you can do a bake sale, you want to run a marathon, you want to climb a mountain, swimathon, whatever you can do to raise money for the charity is going to help the work that we're doing. If you can't do that, donate. If you can't donate, if financially that's not something you can help with, talk to your business that you work for, your corporate organization. Can they be a partner of the charity? Can they work with us? Or simply, just follow us, look at what we're doing on social media, start your own campaign if you want to, and we'll back it and we'll shout about it. Or join us in our Fertility Access campaign. We will be doing in-person meetup events, particularly over the next year. And the work is going to keep going. This is slow progress in advocacy. So the more opportunities we get as an organisation to go and speak at venues, events, and within spaces, the more people are going to be talking about it. And also we are accepting applications for volunteers now as well. So if you feel that passionately that you want to get up and talk about it, come and join us. Amazing. The more the merrier, because we cannot make this change unless we all do this together. So please, anyone that's interested, you are very welcome to join in with what we're doing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like we've put the world to rights during
Yes.
this session.
Yes, we have.
But honestly, all the stuff you're doing is incredible. Like the all-round support that you're providing, as well as all the campaigning, and you're hitting it from all angles. So I have no doubt that you're going to make a difference with all the stuff you're doing within the charity.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got a fantastic team that are Fertility Action. It's not just me. It's a heck of a lot of people behind what we're doing, all with incredible passion. And yeah, together we really hope to make a difference. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely to meet you both.
You're
Yeah,
so
it was
welcome.
lovely to talk to you and see you in person. Well, in person. I was going to say in person, but kind of. Finally.
One day in real life. One day.
One day. Yes. One day. One day. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for listening to the episode. We're going to leave in the description below all of the social media handles for Katie, Fertility Access, and the Fertility, I forgot now, it's like Action, sorry. Because I don't want to say the wrong one, because I follow so many with fertility that I just don't want to say the wrong one. In the description below, so you can just follow. And yeah, we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.